Hello and welcome to the Deep to NBA podcast. My name's Sean and joining me as always is the one and only Dante Boff and Mr. Boff, my man. How are we?
I'm pretty good, Shawnee. How are you?
Splendid. Freezing cold. Today is the day that the moon blocks out the sun. And did you get a chance to go out at work? It was about 1:30 to 3 o'clock that the moon was an eclipse, solar eclipse.
I heard about it posthumously.
Right, so you missed it completely.
Yeah, missed it completely. My co-worker came in and said that she had to put on 2 pairs of sunglasses to look at it, and I was like, "Look at what?" And she's like, "The eclipse," and I was like, "Awesome."
Yeah. So I'm in this like meme group in the north, and this dude is just only text post only, and this guy put this post in because for some reason I'd been hearing about it for the past couple of days, so I was aware of it before it was going to happen. And this dude's just like, man, I don't, because they recommend you buy like these eclipse glasses, right? Which is like, that's a money grab.
That's maybe the most absurd thing I've ever heard in my entire life.
My brain was also like, if you buy eclipse glasses, do you just put them like in your closet, and then 7 years from now when we've got a different kind of eclipse, you're like, sweet, I can use them. Nah, this one's a lunar eclipse. Because this eclipse that happened today, is not going to happen for like 90 years or 70 years. Anyway,
call me when Haley's comment is coming, and other than that,
kid named Haley.
I don't care.
When and in that group, this dude just put in a post saying, I reckon I could fucking look at it. Like, if the moon's blocking it,
yeah,
it can't be too bright. So at about 1:15, and then at 1:30, and then at 2 o'clock, I left my office just behind you, and I walked out and I looked at the sun. And I came back inside and couldn't see in the centre of my screen for about 5 minutes because I'd looked directly at the sun.
Yeah, they did say not to do that.
Yeah, just a general rule, actually. Not
did
even
you see anything different? Or?
No, because the outsides are so bright, it hides the moon in the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's anticlimactic.
Yeah.
I'm sorry you had that experience and burned a hole in your iris.
I stared at the sun 3 times, and then
that's pretty Trumpian behaviour.
It is, because by the 3rd time, I'm like, someone's having me on. Like,
who can I call about this?
So I decided to let it out in my podcast. Any other? Let's call that housekeeping. Any other housekeeping notes? Potentially a show last night.
What did you do? Yeah, what did you do last night?
Went to a show.
Into a show?
Yeah,
me
yourself.
too.
Were you two rows down from me, or 2 columns down from me?
2 columns down from us. Some Excel chat, or some architecture chat if you're into Greco-Roman architecture.
No, just the Excel stuff.
We went and saw James Coburn's show for the Melbourne International Comedy Festival, Not Killing It, at the 86 last night. And I'd say get a ticket because it was great. But you can't. You've missed the boat. Because Thursday and Friday night, as well as Tuesday and Wednesday, he's sold out.
Yeah.
Because it was a bloody great show. He's sold out. It was a full house. And I'll tell you what, he almost brought it down with some of those gags. Especially a gag about particular 4 letters in a row. Mate, that was quality stuff. So anyway, shout out to Jim, who is a friend of the pod. Good work to him. It was a fun night.
And if you do miss his content, you can catch him on Instagram at Human Tabasco.
Yeah.
For the longest time, I thought it was Human Basco.
Yeah.
I just missed the TA.
Oh, it happens.
It happens. But not only are we going to shows, not only is there a freaking eclipse in the sky, it's a great time to be an astronomer. It's the NBA playoffs. It's the first round.
Hey, I'm just getting my head around the eclipse and the shows. It's the first round.
3 more games today. We had the Lakers and the Grizz, the Heat and the Bucks, and the Nuggets and the Wolves. You will not believe who won those games. It was the bigger seeds, the higher seeds. But before we talk about some series, we're just going to give our thoughts on the first round. I suggest we start with Sacramento versus Golden State. The 3-6, where Golden State is the 6, and we are down 2-0 against the Sacramento Kings. There's been plenty of talk about these games, and particularly one moment in which Domantas Sabonis fell down, tried to grab onto the arm of Klay Thompson as he fell. While on the ground, it's fair enough he was sort of caring because everyone was jumping for a rebound and balls going everywhere.
Yeah.
Once the play had cleared and guys were running down the other side of the court, he grabbed onto Draymond Green's leg, foot, ankle area with two hands, and then Draymond, who tried to get up, couldn't get up because someone was grabbing his ankle. And then when the ankle was released, he put his foot on the chest of DeMontis.
He put his foot, like he placed it there.
He placed it there and then pushed off using said sternum of one Lithuanian player to propel himself forwards to join the defensive possession, right? Only a basketball play where you would be running back from offense to defense. And then he was ejected, getting a flagrant 2. Domantas Sabonis got a technical foul assessed to him. Can I just say, if you're in a situation where you get one, you get a tech and you get a flagrant, or two guys get a flagrant, can we just cancel out the free throws? Sabonis missed it, and I yelled to my screen, ball to eye. But I think if Steph's going to take a free throw at one end, Sabonis is going to take 2 for the flagrant. Can you just call it 1 for Sabonis? I think it'll just be a lot. If we're trying to cut down on time as well for the basketball. Anyway. Draymond's now been suspended for a game after that, and Joe Dumas, who's in the league office, good to see him get some headlines after being dismissed from the Detroit Pistons front office. No, Sacramento.
Right.
But
he's been dismissed multiple times.
What was his most recent gig? It was...
Detroit was a long time ago.
Yeah. He played for them, which is where I got confused. Draymond's been suspended for a game. Can you tell me, Dante, your whole thoughts on just the... Is it called the Stomp? Is this how we're going to remember it?
Well, it's very Draymond to get a 1-game suspension in a crucial playoff game for something involving a foot. That's what we call a throwback. I don't think that this was suspension worthy.
I think being kicked out for the rest of the game is sort of serving your time.
Because he didn't really it's kind of not a stomp in and of itself, because he kind of goes to stand where he thinks the floor is going to be, because obviously he doesn't know that Sabonis is directly underneath him. And then he makes contact with Sabonis, and then he kind of pushes off.
Yeah.
So he doesn't realize Sabonis is there, it looks like, and then puts his foot down to step on the hardwood, and then realizes that he's there and makes the decision to follow through with the step.
Yeah.
But he's not lifting his leg and then bringing it down with intent to stomp or whatever. So I think an ejection is probably plenty, and 1 game is,
over the top,
a bit much. Particularly, it becomes difficult when the leg officer is saying that his history of these sort of incidents plays into it. It shouldn't. It's not the fucking court of law. It's basketball.
Yeah.
So I don't know why that is really kind of coming into it for this incident.
And it's very weird for them to say that as well. And apparently the Warriors, this was on Zach Lowe's podcast, the Warriors front office are very, very pissed off. And they're sort of going on the offensive as well, saying that Sabonis is getting away with a lot of pushes because a couple of plays before the stomp, or the foot press, let's say, before the play, Sabonis just absolutely cleared Looney out of the way, just almost 2 hands on his back, and then got the offensive rebound.
Well, you can bet that he'll be policed more tightly in Game 3.
Which, basketball fans lose because of that, I would say, because maybe we're going to get too many whistles, and maybe one Scott Foster's coming off a huge defeat by Scott Foster.
Take the L, Scott, you fucking dickhead.
It's. I agree with you where I think he definitely deserved the ejection, but does he? Did he deserve the suspension? I think it doesn't help that Adam Silver was in the crowd for this game, and he's sitting there, and the Warriors Kings series has been one of the most viewed series, I think, in the first round, but. Adam Silver's sitting there watching this game, and then he sees Draymond, who, as the refs are talking to Secaucus, New Jersey, to get the call. Draymond's just going around doing a couple of just hyping up the crowd, and just being an antagonist. That probably doesn't look good if you're Adam Silver sitting there. But then what's the?
But then at the same time,
who cares?
Part of the not even who cares, but part of the reason we love basketball is because there's dudes that we love to hate.
Yeah.
There's villains, and there's historically been villains, and some of the greatest players in the history of the game, namely the greatest player in the history of the game, Mick Jordan, a notable villain who's gone around to opposing teams and opposing fan bases kind of antagonizing. Draymond Green is a don't get me wrong, he's really fucking irritating, and he's an idiot a lot of the time. But Draymond Green being himself is like good for basketball. And if Adam Silver, is sitting there being like, "God, we need to get this out of the game," then he's hurting the product.
Yeah,
he is hurting the product.
And to go back to your point about using his past record against him, it's like, well, what's the point of the suspension? Because it's like you've done something that they don't deem a basketball play, and you should be suspended for it. That's fine, like that's your punishment. But then if we're punishing guys for their record, like we're going to have to, every single time we're considering a suspension, we're going to have to say, oh, well, he's had a perfect record up until then. So then what was the Beef Stew LeBron? Beef Stew got like 2 games for throwing a punch at LeBron, and LeBron for just like the herky jerked elbow into his head. And LeBron got 1 suspension for that, but like, should LeBron have been suspended at all? Because he's got a pristine record.
Yeah, it muddies the waters between how you assess the incident versus how you assess everything else, and it doesn't really belong in the decision-making process, I would say, of looking at like the NBA playoffs. Like I would love to give a Kings fan like truth serum and say like, are you actually if Draymond didn't get suspended, would a Kings fan be genuinely up in arms and saying like, wow, like can't believe he didn't get suspended for this, or would they feel like he missed the rest of the game? When did this happen?
It was like halfway through the 4th quarter, and we were
so he misses the crucial part of the game, and there you go, you win the game. Like that's
the punishment.
That's the punishment. Yeah. What have been your thoughts on the series so far?
Series so far has been very frustrating because we're sort of coming up against our kryptonite. Because one of the things that, like, the Warriors always beat themselves when they lose a game is because we throw too many stupid passes leading to turnovers. We're the ones who make the mistakes, and then if the other team can capitalize on them, you can beat the Warriors every single night.
This is a far cry from last week. There's not a scenario. There's not a scenario in which I can see us not making the conference finals.
I'm still picking them to win.
Yeah, and what you are also doing here is not giving the Kings any credit, because you're implying that the Warriors are beating themselves rather than being beaten by a good team.
So we're right. We are. Let me just go to NBA stats. We are beating ourselves.
You are turning the ball over quite a lot.
We're turning the ball over quite a lot, but the Kings have had like a below average offensive rating in the half court for these 2 games.
Yeah, but they're also like led by the speediest point guard in the league. Getting out on the break.
But when things are slowed down, we're doing a good job. When things are slowed down, we're defending well. We're doing everything that we should. And when Draymond is back there and he has time to organize the troops and he has time to like just have a look at the whole entire the opponents coming at him, we're doing a good job. It's just that when we commit live ball turnovers and when we again missing threes, statistically they just bounce further away. So missed threes are also leaking out to the best transition team in the whole entire league. Like that's I think it's magnifying how bad it is that we're playing, because all of our mistakes are just getting crammed right down our throats.
Yeah, and you're losing the margin of error.
But I'm confident that, again, we've had road struggles. I'm confident we get back to home. By the time you listen to this, there might have been a game played. I don't know if we're getting another day's rest or not. But if we can just stop turning the ball over and stop those dangerous live ball turnovers, all of a sudden their offense is just that below average offense that we're seeing in the half court. And they're just not getting buffed up by these transition numbers. And we've seen that Steph Curry's just getting absolutely anything he wants. And Steph Curry is like bending the defense to his will. He's just playing as well as he ever had. And I'm confident that like we've got we're abusing their defense or lack thereof. They don't have anyone to guide our best guys. Jordan Poole was injured last game. He was questionable heading into the game and then just had a stinker. I still think we can win if all goes well.
I think you can definitely win, but the margin for error is gone now completely, especially with Draymond out in Game 3. Like, there's a realistic scenario in which you just lose Game 3 without Draymond, and then that's the series. So this is just not an exaggeration to say that Game 3 is must win for
100%.
for Golden State.
100%. Who would be your pick to replace Draymond in the starting lineup? During the regular season, we've gone with Jonathan Kuminga and just said, do your best Draymond impersonation, which on offense, he just turns into a 5, which is fine because that's just not who he is. Or we can play Wiggins at the 4 and have Dante DiVincenzo slide into the starting lineup.
Well, DiVincenzo hasn't been very good. So, I mean, Wiggins at the 4 is an idea that appeals, but there's no one on the roster who can kind of like fit in and play anything close to a Draymond role. You know, kind of initiating screens and working with DHOs and stuff like that. There's no one who can replicate that. Don't you bloody wish you had JTA just kicking around at the back of the roster to plug in right now.
But no, he's in Utah.
Tongue cheek on that one. Yeah, I think Wiggins at the 4 is probably your best bet.
We've also been closing with Gary Payton ever since he pretty much came back. So maybe why don't we just start with Gary Payton? He's the primary defender on Fox anyway, so it's not like Fox just gets a couple of easier baskets against the guy he's not seeing most of the time. So maybe go Gary Payton, but then they're definitely all steps down from Draymond Green at the 4.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, something that we've seen in the first 2 games of the Suns Clippers series is Monty Williams trying to figure out what's the best like mix and the best rotation of wings to throw against the Clippers, who like their best players are at the 2 and the 3. And he's thrown in Damian Lee for like 4 minutes, see how it goes. He's thrown in Ish Wainwright, see how that goes. Usually we would be starting Josh Okogie, but he started Torrey Craig instead, just kind of like throwing everything at the wall and seeing what fits. And there's a similar problem here where you've got like a DiVincenzo or Payton who like aren't really like a 3, who don't really just like slide in perfectly, but offer skill sets that are valuable. Otherwise you've got a Kuminga or a Moody who like, again, don't slide in like incredibly, but offer something different to those 2 as well. So do you think that that's something that will kind of happen in the early stages, that there'll be a bit of a cycling in, or do you think that Steve Kerr is going to like, I forget what version of Steve Kerr we're up to at the moment, but Steve Kerr, whatever version we're up to, is he going to make the decision and that guy's going to play 30 minutes?
I think it's definitely like we're closing with Dante and Gary Payton. Like Gary Payton has been closing, so I think we're definitely closing with Dante. We're probably going to start Jonathan Kuminga, and he's going to get like the Keith Bogans-ish because Steve Kerr loves giving it to him.
The first bloody 6 minutes of the first and third, and then see you later.
And he plays well, and like we can switch with him just like normal, and he'll get up on Fox and he'll make like a young person mistake, but he's going to get a couple of steals and a couple of blocks. But on offense, obviously, like we can just do what we do with Kevon Looney at the 5. But if we do go small. Oh, I mean, actually, that's probably not even a possibility anymore, is it? Because there's no Draymond at the 5. There'll be Jonathan Kuminga at the 5. But I was going to say, with the pick and roll, Steph Curry just doesn't usually have a vertical element when it comes to the pick and roll. Not really since Andrew Bogut was there. So it'll be good to have Jonathan Kuminga out there, just because we know that Sabonis is going to get stuck in no man's land every single time a screen comes. I don't know how much you fucking trust Alex Len to be the stopper there as well. So I think the alley-oop's going to be there for Jonathan Kuminga if he wants to just get like an easy 10 points tomorrow or the day after. And then hopefully just a big home game from Steph and the Splash Brothers, which you can just bank on them making a couple more threes, and all of a sudden that 3-point loss in game 1 wouldn't be a loss.
Yep.
What series do you want to talk about next?
Should we talk about Denver and Minnesota?
Yeah, surprisingly a close one. I don't know if you caught the tail end of that game, but Denver were coasting up by like 20-something points. And I had actually started to write these notes at that time, and the first dot point we've got here is one of these teams is so much better than the other. But then Minnesota actually came back and made it a game. I think they were, at one stage, they were 12 or 14 in the third quarter. They ended up shooting 80%. There was actually like a good quarter-time interview with Mike Malone, for those playing at home, where whoever the sideline reporter was, they said, Michael, what's going on? Why did you guys struggle so much in that third quarter? And he goes, they shot 80% from the floor. And she's like, what are you going to do differently? And he's like, play defense.
Yeah.
I mean, just
Which I
you hate because they're
Yeah.
just being rude to someone during
Yeah.
work.
Yeah, the sideline reporter asked you a question that you feel is. Do you want the
Belittling.
Do you want the sideline? Well, not even belittling. Like I reckon he feels like it's a dumb question. Like, well, obviously they shot 80%. Do you want the sideline reporter to come at you and go, Mike, you had a 5.4% below expectation effective field goal percentage in that one. What are you going to do with shot location to improve that? No, you don't.
Yeah.
So be a nice person and say the coach speak thing that you just need to say, and just fucking we need to take better shots. We
Yeah.
need to be smarter with our ball movement. Thanks so much, Ali LaForce. There you go, done.
But yeah,
Michael.
Denver eventually just like were the better team in the fourth quarter. A lot of fouls in this one. Rudy Gobert had a tech down the end where he didn't think he committed a foul on Nikola Jokic. And I mean, look, it's probably a 50-50, but he didn't get the call, and then he's like, whoa. And then he just decided to sprint, it's like Sonic the Hedgehog style, to half court. His arms were like trailing behind him, like, he just can't keep up with him. And he's like, whoa, and then he gets a tech, and then Carl Anderson comes up and calms him down, puts the arm over his shoulder, and it's just like, you can't keep talking like that.
Water under the bridge, huh? We're all here to win, aren't we?
Yeah.
Foul trouble for the bigs, like throughout the second half.
Get this, Karl-Anthony Towns, a lot of fouls.
Jeez, he would not fucking read about
And it
that.
kept him off the court.
And he struggled when he was on the court. He chipped in 10 points in 34 minutes, 3 of 12 from the field. He made 2 threes, which means he made one 2-point field goal. Your center can't be doing that.
Yeah.
You just absolutely cannot have your big, who by the way is like an all-star big, make him 1 2-point field goal.
I would also love Anthony Edwards and Kat to have a good game on the exact same day.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how many like great table setters and Mike Conley you bring in, like your best players just need to be they just need to be consistent at some baseline. Anthony Edwards was 14-23 this game, had 41 points, and he was down the end of the game. There was just absolutely no offense being run in the fourth quarter because despite everyone hitting all their shots in the third quarter, the fourth was just like nothing's happening. And Edwards was just taking some absurd shots and they were just going in. And he looked really good taking them, and he was getting good separation, but not much was happening, and sometimes he was shooting it before all 5 guys had crossed over the
He
the
does
half
have a
court
bit
line.
of that in him though. So whether that's
That DOG or just that bad play.
bad players that I was going for, but I'm sure there is a canine living somewhere inside him. We just have to put him in the right situation.
We just need to take it out of Russell Westbrook. And final comment down the end, when Minnesota actually took the lead, it was maybe it was 81-80 or 90 something, and then Michael Malone does what he does, where he just says, "Hey, we're going to have 3 shooters and finishers on one side of the court, and the other side is just going to be a Jamal Jokic pick and roll," and it's just so unbeatable. And I'll ask you a follow-up question in a minute, but there was this one really good little moment down the end of the game where Jokic is. I love it when Jokic turns into commander mode. Michael Porter Jr. is inbounding the ball, and Jokic is like yelling at him, pointing to the ground, saying to like roll it up, to bounce it up. So the ball's rolling right in front of him, and Jokic is looking, and he's like looking. He asks everyone to spread out to the corners or behind the 3-point line, and he sees where everyone's going. And as soon as he looks, picks up the ball, and then he points at KCV. And then he says, "Come over here," throws the ball to Jamal. He walks out of the way. They get a switch, so it's Mike Conley on Jamal because Jamal was just torching him. He had 40 points today. And then as soon as KCP got that switch, Jokic just moved his hand, told him to get out of the way. And all of a sudden they've got the pick and roll that they want. They've got the matchups that they want. And Jamal hit like 2 like really nice pull-up threes. And was just shooting over Mike Conley. Really fucking cool, just like seeing Jokic, like you're just seeing an MVP in the middle of a basketball game with screaming fans, just like say, "Hey, can you roll the ball? Because I just need to look for a second," and then just tell everyone where to go. And also for everyone just to go where he says, just like, yeah, this dude knows basketball better than us. I'll do whatever the fuck you ask.
Well, and the thing as well is like everyone on the team knows that he knows that.
Yeah,
they're like even from his first season as a full-time starter. People were like, "Oh shit!" Like, if I'm if I cut, he's going to find me for a pass. I'm going to cut. Like, players who you never hear, like, of anyone in Denver being like, oh, like, they're not really good movement, like, moving off the ball, like, kind of standing around. Like, nah, everyone comes in and plays the way that they know Jokic wants to play because they know that he's good enough to find them. And then an example like that, he's just directing traffic and everyone's like, yeah, this guy is going to find the right outcome and the outcome that's best for us. We're going to just fucking do it.
And then, like, if you're KCP, you're just sitting there going, man, like, sometimes he bosses me around, but I shoot 46% from three, and I'm going to get
but you never, like, you never hear that, though.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, even Michael Porter Jr., who could have been an Anthony Edwards, which, funny enough, he's playing against him and doing the same thing. He's, like, so bought into the team and has only said good things this year.
LeBron, CP3, Harden, like, classic guys who were very, like, vocal with their teammates in kind of, like, directing traffic, have had numerous teammate bust-ups. I mean, obviously they've had a longer career, but Jokic has been a full-time starter for 4 or 5 years now and has been an All-NBA player for 4 straight seasons. So, and you've never heard a peep from anyone.
I will mention there was peep from DeMarcus Cousins. That was but listen, it was funny because that was one of the reasons why he didn't come back. And I was sitting there. I remember I was writing for Nuglove, going, "Why the fuck aren't they bringing back DeMarcus Cousins? Like, he was a fine backup. He's going to play 5 minutes in the playoffs." And then there were some murmurs that they weren't confirming, but like a lot of people were like, "Yeah, Michael Malone and Jokic were just like this dude's a weirdo." And then he obviously didn't play basketball this year. And he was on a podcast maybe 2 weeks ago saying, "Nah, Jokic he's not a 3-time MVP. Like, we've got to give it to Embiid. He's just a better player." The next day, it was announced that Boogie's playing in the Philippines.
Well, good on him. He's taken Dwight Howard to town in the Philippines, I heard.
But that's a brilliant segue. That's in Taiwan, where Dwight Howard is.
Bloody hell.
That's a brilliant segue to Embiid, the guy who DeMarcus Cousins has as his MVP. Do you want to talk a little bit about Philly and Brooklyn?
It's been a really fun series so far, and Philly are just a way better team with way more ways to beat you. And in game 1, that was going all through Embiid, and he was really driving that. But the other day, game 2, Embiid kind of like really, really struggled. And it was Maxey, Harden, Harris kind of picking up the slack there. And Embiid in particular, like, he really didn't assert himself at all in the first half. And the few times that they did try and kind of like get him the ball, he was very, very passive, and like they were double teaming him pretty hard. He ended up having 8 turnovers in the game, which is a huge problem for your big to be having 8 turnovers. It's obviously as ball dominant as he is. But through the whole game, he only took 11 shots, which is kind of like a bit crazy, considering that his whole shtick is, I'm going to score 33 points per game. So he's averaging 22 through the first 2 games of the series. But they're just way deeper, and they've got guys. They've got not only a system, but they've got guys who can just like do it outside of the system. And watching them, I've just been struck by the fact that the Nets have a really good system, and they're getting their 3-and-D guys like open threes, like literally as many open threes as they wanted. Cam Johnson was hitting them the other day. He had like 22 points in the first half. Finney Smith has been hitting them, but they've got no one else who can like do anything out of system. The only guy is Bridges, and Bridges has struggled mightily in game 2. And in the second half, they kind of just like ran out of options. Yeah. They was like, oh, we can do like the pick and roll into a drive and kick to our shooter. Cool, like awesome. And then it's just missing, and it's like, well, there's no plan B, and nobody wants to go near the rim because Embiid is there. So he's just camped out, and like if your system is going to generate you like 3-and-D shots from your role players, and you can't score near the rim, you're not going to score enough points to win.
Yeah, I mean, 84 points in a playoff game is pretty freaking depressing. But yeah, it's almost like this is a team that traded away their 2 best players, their 2 superstars, and we're just left with all the remaining pieces. But I mean, it is promising that like they still managed to hang in during the regular season. They're here, and they've got the best role players on the planet. that can just, if there is a star out there that they can trade for and just bring them in, then like it's looking good. But
it is promising, but there was like no point, like after the first 3 minutes of the third quarter in game 2, there was no point at which you felt like they were going to win.
Do you think they're going to win a game?
Pardon?
Do you think they're going to win a game for the rest of the series?
I think it's going to be a GS.
Right.
I think it's going to be a gentleman's sweep. Because the system is there. It's not like they're inept. It's not like it's the like the Magic as the 8th seed, and it's like like no one can shoot and no one can dribble. What's happening here? There's like the offense looks really good when it's kind of like free flowing and it's like move, and they have tried to experiment with like going small and bringing Embiid away, like sitting Claxton, trying to play 5 out and bring Embiid away from the basket, and it worked a few times. But I think ultimately they're just going to be too limited, and the fact that too limited offensively to score, and the fact that Embiid has taken 26 shots through 2 games, is like a bit ominous, because surely in one of these games he's going to say, okay, I am going to take over here right from the off. And they've been getting in the ball like really far away from the rim, like almost he's posting up like, he's making Dirk posting up at the nail look like he was under the basket, because he's like a good like 6 feet further out. Like he's got 1 foot outside the 3-point line when he's posting up trying to get the ball, and then he's kind of ISOing from the top of the key when the D's set, and it's like, you're big, and now you're really far away from the rim, and everyone is between you and the rim, and he has such a size and weight advantage over Claxton that when he's defended by Claxton, he just kind of can go through him anyway. But there's got to be an easier way for him to get the ball and still be able to kind of like get to work in the mid-range and get into the paint and get to the free throw line, because he hasn't really been doing that as much as we're used to either. So the fact that Philly's like up 2-0 and Embiid really hasn't gotten going in a meaningful way is like it's ominous for the Nets.
I'll just say a quick word on Milwaukee versus Miami. Obviously, without Giannis, we all said in the group chat, "Oh, hold on a minute! Like, is this going to be really weird?" And then Tyler Hero broke his hand and he's out for 4 to 6 weeks, which would be the finals, not the conference finals.
Yeah, I was looking at that the other day, being like, it's so optimistic, and like you love the Heat for backing themselves in here not to rule him out for the playoffs. I was like, no, he's out for 4 to 6 weeks. Maybe we'll see him in 4 to 6 weeks.
Yes, and then they stole game 1 with Giannis going to hospital to get some scans, which he's they come back fine. Maybe he misses another game, maybe he doesn't, but. Yeah, today Milwaukee put up like 82 points in the first half. Yeah, quarter would have been pretty good, but yeah, it's just without Tyler Hero, like their starting lineup is Bam, Jimmy at your big spots. Yeah, and then Duncan Robinson, Gabe Vincent, and Max Strus.
Well, today Gabe Vincent played really well, and it was him, Bam, and Jimmy were the only ones kind of giving a bit of a scoring punch. But like that's it. Yeah, that's literally it.
Pretty miserable in Miami, and we'll definitely talk about them. Heading once they get eliminated, like where the fuck do they go from here? But yeah, discussion for another day. Then Lakers and Memphis. Again, one of these teams is just better than the other. The Lakers, after making all these moves and having, X good defense since all the moves and the trade deadline, without Ja Morant and with Jaren Jackson Jr. sort of in and out of the lineup because he rolled his ankle, just Aldama and Xavier Tillman and Tyus Jones and Luke Kennard as your point guard rotation was just enough to put away the Los Angeles Lakers, who I think are full strength. Is that right? They're not missing anyone.
Yeah, the only people that are not playing because they're bad.
Yeah. You feel pretty bad as a Lakers fan right now. You should have won this game.
Rinse and repeat what we said about Cat for Davis, but if your big is shooting 4 of 14, I mean, I know that you're going up against an awesome defensive team that does have the defensive player of the year on it, but if the Lakers are going to be anything, Anthony Davis can't be scoring 13 points He's on 4 of 14 shooting. Like it can't happen. There's not enough like creation on this team to really be able to buttress him having games like this.
Yeah. And Dillon Brooks, who said that he wants the Lakers when the play-in was just about to happen, and he essentially got to say who he'd rather play out of OKC, Mini, and Lakers. He said he wants the Lakers, and then they lost game one, didn't say a word, and then now they won the game. LeBron was actually like legitimately getting angry at him on the court when he was just saying some stupid shit. And Phil Handy came up and just like screamed at him, which was pretty cool. But then after the game, Dillon Brooks had just so many sound bites where he said, he's an old man, I don't care, bloody blah, and I'm not going to listen to him until he drops 40 on my head. Dillon
Brooks, he talks an awful lot for someone who, what number does it start with?
Yeah.
And it's not like, it's not the right number. And he has retained his place in this team, although maybe not for long. We'll wait for the off season before we address that. But he's like retained his place in the team despite being like not that good.
Yeah,
and just comes in with the bravado of someone who's like he just gives like the runtiest like kid, like high school kid in the group who can say whatever he wants because he knows he's got a whole bunch of big boys behind him to back him up.
Yeah.
Or like the runty younger brother who's like, oh, if you touch me, my older brother will.
Yeah.
Like Dillon Brooks, you're a bit of a weasel.
A mega weasel.
You heard it here first.
Molly Morrison of Bleacher Report said something on Twitter where she's like, because he rocked up to the game with like a gold chain that says DB. And he was just like not wearing a shirt, but had like a flannel over the top and like ripped jeans. And then she's like, you know what? If someone rocked up to the game wearing this outfit, talking shit to like the greatest player of all time non-stop, and then like doesn't hit a single three until it's like 2 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, I would hate him as well. But he plays for my team, so she likes him.
But good that she can see it. Good that she can see it.
That's it for our first round wrap up. I think we missed one series, but there's probably a reason we're not talking about the Atlanta Hawks because they shouldn't be there.
Well, we missed the Clippers and the Suns as well, but by the time
and the Cavs Knicks, which has been really good. But we'll talk about that next week.
Yeah, we've got plenty of time under the sun. And it is a great time to be a basketball fan.
It's a great time to be a basketball fan. I will say there was this thing on Twitter where someone retweeted a post where it was like just before the series, it was like, hey, at Hawks fans, who do you think is going to slow down John Collins? I think he's in prime for like a big one. And it's like he's in the low post, he spins middle on Al Horford, Rob Williams comes over to help, and then he like pump fakes and then fakes back, and all of a sudden Malcolm Brogdon just rips the ball out of his hands, and it's like, yeah, that's who's going to stop him. And they retweeted it with that video. It's just getting fucking ate.
It's not looking good for Atlanta. Like, it's actually looking quite bad.
You would be better off losing in the play-in. But they're going to get 2 games worth of ticket revenue, playoff ticket revenue, so good on them.
Yay. I love, I really love...
rooting for ticket revenue?
No, I love a conference finals appearance and then 2 consecutive play-in appearances and a first-round exit. That's the best.
Dante, you've got a beach to visit. I will talk to you next week. We were over the moon when we first heard that the NBA was going to be televised on Australian free-to-air TV in the 2019-20 season. It didn't exactly go swimmingly with the nasty cough halting the season and games getting cancelled left, right and centre, but it was a huge step and an exciting one for basketball fans all across the country.
Better yet, it wasn't a commercial channel cashing in on some basketball nerds like us. It was SBS, one of our public broadcasters. Unfortunately, the NBA wasn't the only thing SBS was pushing last season. They also ran advertisements from Sportsbet, Ladbrokes, Bet365, BetEasy, and Neds, some of the biggest sports betting companies in Australia.
In a one-step forwards, 2 steps backwards move, SBS has dropped the ball here. As a public broadcaster, SBS plays a key role in providing relevant, culturally appropriate health information to local communities. The last thing SBS should be doing is offering a platform for gambling companies during the most financially unstable time in recent memory.
This past year, men aged 18 to 24 made up 79% of new gambling account holders, with increased median spending and frequency of bets. This is the last thing we should be spending our money on given the financial uncertainty that comes with the pandemic. During COVID lockdowns, wagering companies spent more money on advertising and incentives to gamble, and it worked. SBS needs to hear from viewers that gambling ad revenue isn't worth the harm it causes. Call on the SBS chair, George Savitas, to put community health ahead of gambling revenue by signing the petition at www.endgamblingads.org.au/get gambling off SBS with hyphens in between.